You're listening to the mother of all talk shows with me, George Galloway, coming to you this morning from Jakarta, Indonesia, exclusively for WBAI.
America, this is the President of the United States. You are listening to George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows. George is a Scotsman, unlike me, an Irishman. Enjoy.
The more I hear that sting, the more I think it is President Obama. Maybe he is listening. He could certainly do worse. He might learn a thing or two. This is George Galloway. This is the mother of all talk shows, and this is the mother of all ambitious technological achievements, because I'm on a telephone line in Jakarta, Indonesia, where it's, I think, 8 o'clock in the evening. Yes, 8 o'clock in the evening. Later tonight, in an hour and a half or so from now, I'll be catching the airplane back to London through Dubai. I flew 24 hours to get here. I stayed here 24 hours, and I'm taking 24 hours to get back there tonight. If you want the full story of it, follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Go to Facebook, George Galloway MP. That's the important site. Nearly 60,000 people, friends of that site. That's George Galloway MP on Facebook, where you'll read more of what I'm doing here. But let me give you two headlines, because they may help to, guide us in the conversation that we're going to have this morning across New York and the tri-state area. The first is that I'm attending a conference of the Asia-Pacific communities in support of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. Now, not a lot of people know that inalienable actually has a meaning. Inalienable means that it cannot be sold. And so one of the purposes of this conference, which is attended by 300 delegates, 50% of them from Indonesia, which, incidentally, is the biggest Muslim country in the world. The population of Indonesia, about which most people in the West know little or nothing, is 230 million people. 230 million people, 88% of whom are Muslim. It's a democratic country now. It had a long period of dictatorship, but it's a democratic country now. There's a coalition government, and there's a quite lively political culture here. And one of the new paths that the new government in Indonesia is definitely taking is a stepping up of their support for the Palestinian people. They are agitating within the ASEAN region, very important region, of course, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and so on, for recognition of the so-called Palestinian state, which is reportedly coming up at the General Assembly in New York in September. I myself will believe that when I see it, but nothing wrong with winning friends to the idea of recognizing a Palestinian state. Of course, the devil will be in the detail. And I was sitting just this afternoon, and I've tweeted this, and I've put it out on Facebook, and it's really setting a tremendous amount of heather on fire. I was sitting with a very, very senior official, couldn't really be more senior, in the Indonesian Foreign Ministry, discussing the Saudi Arabian beheading of an Indonesian maid in Saudi Arabia on the 18th of June. Not a lot of people know that. But of course, if it had happened in Iran, if Iran had beheaded a foreign domestic worker who says that she was merely defending herself against the rape and abuse by her employer, then of course it would be the number one item on the news, wouldn't it? If Iran had chopped a woman's head off in public, in the square, the blood spurting into the sand, the head rolling on the ground, wouldn't that be a big story if it had happened in Iran? Is it a big story in Saudi Arabia? Well, it might be in New York. It certainly isn't in London or anywhere else that I've managed to tune into. So I put that up on my Facebook, and the Saudi defenders are out there, curved swords in hand. You might want to talk about that, or you might want to talk about any of the other issues that are current today. If I can, I'll have a point of view on them to put back to yours. Just one last plea. Although I'm not banning discussion on the 9/11 conspiracy theories, I really, really hope we can discuss other things too here on the Mother of All Talk Shows. Ife, as always, is indispensable in making this show happen. Without her, it would not be happening, and she's manning, or rather womaning, and she's all woman, a great, great, bright, young, vivacious woman, Ife, and you can reach her on 212-209-2900. That's 212-209-2900. Ife, do we have any calls on the line?
Well, the calls just started coming in, so I'll just take this first one. I don't have the person's name, though.
All right, thank you. Good morning, caller. I'm in
morning,
Jakarta, Indonesia. Where are you, sir?
I'm in Harlem of New York City, USA. I question your use of the word mother in your introduction, in your tagline of your program, because you are a man, and I am amazed that you don't say you're the man of this program, or the leader, or the...
Well, I'm in touch with my feminine side, you see.
Well, I'm glad of that, but I want you to know that I was a little appalled that you claimed that you wanted to meet with a rich widow, and I called in, and I think I have the opportunity to eat with you for $1,000.
Oh, that's outstanding.
But
I was really only joking
Monroe,
about
by
the
the
rich
way.
widow.
Monroe,
I was really only
the thing
joking
is-
about the rich widow. I'm really pretty sound on these matters.
Yes, but I'm the person who called you on your second program and then on a later one about your attitudes about Libya. And today on Democracy Now!, there was this commentary about whether this was a war in Libya by the United States or some police action or some attempt to save, as I originally hoped, to save the poor civilian population of Libya and the workers from southern Africa who come up to work in Libya. So, hello?
Yes, I'm listening.
I wonder now at this point, when you had said that Gaddafi was the most disorganized government, whether you're willing to retract those two words, most disorganized, because I must say I salute him for his durability.
Well, you can salute him if you like. I won't be joining you. I support the masses in Libya overthrowing their dictatorship. Gaddafi is a dictator, was always a dictator. He just was a dictator who, for a little while, played ball with the imperialist system and the fat lot of good that it did him. The disorganization of Libya as a state is famous, and anyone who's ever set foot in the country knows that that's true. That's why I always never knew whether to laugh or cry when I heard the brass hats saying that they were bombing this or that command and control center in Libya. There are no command and control centers in Libya. There's no command and control in Libya. What there is the former colonial powers plus the United States, although the United States bombarded Tripoli in the 19th century, believe it or not. It may even been in the 18th century. You will know the details maybe better than I.
Well,
the colonial powers, the former colonial powers, are killing children and women and old men in their houses.
No.
In Libya, that's what's happening.
I know, but the point is, when will this madness end?
Well, it'll end when we're strong enough to force our countries to stop going around the world attacking other people. And quite evidently, we're not yet powerful enough to do so in your country or mine.
Well, let me just say, you charge $1,000 to eat with you. I charge $3,000 to eat with me.
Okay, brother, I look forward to our very expensive dinner, but you're paying, that's for sure. Thanks very much. Ife, do we have another call?
Yes, you have Mario from the Bronx.
Mario from the Bronx. Welcome to the Mother of All Talk Shows.
How you doing? Good morning there.
Good morning to you, sir.
All right. First of all, I would like to ask you, how do you really feel about the signing of the bill for the gay marriage. And then two, my question is that, all right, if Indonesia could go ahead and do something like that to, say, a foreign civilian, I mean, how does the international court, how do they look at that? And how,
well, that's a very good question. But let me answer the first question first.
Okay.
I think that any two people finding love in this rough and difficult world is a cause to be celebrated. Now, I don't require them or even have a view on whether they call that a love affair, a relationship, a marriage, a civil partnership, a gay marriage. I don't care about any of that. That's a matter for the people concerned and the people who love them. I'm just happy when people find love in this world. And so if New York City has passed a bill, if the people have endorsed a particular form of institutionalizing or formalizing that, that's a matter for them. I just hope it leads to a lot more love in the world. The Indonesian maid, who was one of 6 million foreign workers in Saudi Arabia, 75% of them women, almost all of them from poor third world countries, are treated like dirt by their Saudi employers in a great many instances, maybe even most instances. Anyone who's ever been there, as I have many times, and seen the way that these poor maids and nannies and basically all-round scullery workers, the sort of poor Hattie Carroll who's serving at the table, who never sat once at the head of the table, and a succession of Saudi Williams and Zingers throw their canes at her and abuse and beat and exploit and sometimes even rape her, is not surprised when from time to time one of these domestic workers snaps back at those who have been cruelly treating her, cruelly abusing her. And that appears to be what happened in this case, at least according to one of the very, very, and I mean very, very top people in the Indonesian Foreign Ministry. Now, the Saudis have a case that they say she murdered her employer, that the law in Saudi Arabia is that the penalty for murder is to get your head chopped off in public, in a public square. That's their case. I personally believe the Indonesian Foreign Ministry, rather than a brute dictatorship that chops people's heads off and calls it justice. Where stand you?
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is that, they do this throughout the Muslim world. They, torture people and they do these things.
They don't, brother. That's not true, Mario. There's no other Muslim country where people get their head chopped off. None.
Well, so-called terrorists like Al-Qaeda and Taliban and these people. We're talking about a
state here, Mario. It is really very important that you know this. There is no other Muslim country, none, that chops people's heads off. None. Only Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia is America's best friend.
How about
it's Britain's best friend. Why?
Because of the money, the money, the oil, the relationship, the Bushes, the fathers, it goes back, way back. But how about stoning of women in Pakistan and say Malaysia?
No, they don't get stoned in Pakistan, and they certainly don't get stoned.
I saw documentaries on this where women get burned, they get dragged out of their house.
No, there may be acts by individuals, horrific honor killings and so on, but the state in Pakistan definitely does not stone women to death. And if I heard you saying Malaysia, I thought Malaysia is a modern democratic country. No such thing could possibly happen in Malaysia.
Well, look,
this is the level.
America is a democratic country, and look what goes on here.
Listen, man. In the United States, they shoot people to death. The state. They inject people with poison. They gas them in a gas chamber. They electrocute them in an electric chair. But they don't do that in these Muslim countries you're talking about. I give you that assurance.
All right, I'll look a little deeper into it. Thanks, Mr.
Yeah,
Galloway.
it's very important, brother, because there's a lot of misinformation out there and even some disinformation. Ife, it's 212-209-2900. Do we have anyone else on the line?
Yes, you have Steve from Brooklyn.
Hi there, Brooklyn. This is Jakarta. What would you like to say to me?
Hi, George. Good to see you getting around the world working for peace.
Thank you.
I have a question specifically about the Palestinian situation.
Yeah.
I wonder if you would say something about the problem and the solution, which seems to me to be that there is this very tiny minority of Israelis who believe in their right to occupy the Palestinian territories. And somehow these people have managed to leverage the whole of Israel and the whole of the United States to support their cause. I wondered
Well, I wish it was a tiny minority, brother. Why do you say it's a tiny minority? The Israeli public keeps electing governments that are more and more and more right-wing. I mean, Netanyahu is the most right-wing leader they've ever had. They threw out the government, which massacred 1,610 Palestinians in Gaza over 2008, 2009, Christmas and New Year. They weren't hawkish enough for them. The Israeli public threw them out and elected Netanyahu. It's definitely not a tiny minority, brother. This government that you see in Tel Aviv is the government chosen by the majority of people in Israel. There's no point in wishing that away. The bigger question is how come America is allowing its policy towards this whole region and this whole Muslim ummah of 2 billion people is allowing its policy to be dictated by the Israel lobby in the United States, principally AIPAC, which is effectively telling the U.S. government what they can and cannot do, even when what they're not doing or doing is against the interests of the United States.
Okay.
Don't you think?
I agree with what you said so far. By minority, I meant the actual settlers, the fundamentalists, whatever you want to call them.
But the government that is backing those settlers
what has scared
is the government chosen by the majority in Israel.
Then
people who want peace and justice in Israel are the most heroic people anywhere in the world, because you couldn't get closer to the front line than being an activist for peace and justice in Israel. They're heroes, but they're very, very few. Very, very few. This is the melancholy truth, brother.
Then to modify my question, what has scared the Israeli people, a thinking and world-wise group of people, into following this right-wing agenda? What force could we possibly...
Well, lots of things. Racism, a belief that might is right, a belief that if you are strong enough and determined enough to use your strength, you can have your way. You can steal other people's water. You can steal other people's land. You can live in somebody else's house. You know, when the great Albert Einstein was asked to be the first president of Israel,
he refused.
You know what his reply was?
No.
I could never be the president of a country whose future happiness is based on the ruins of somebody else's past. He could not agree to be the president of Israel because Israel exists because Palestine no longer exists. Israel is built on the villages and even sometimes in the houses that belonged to the Palestinian people before Palestine was wiped off the map. These are the melancholy truths. I know that people would love them to be otherwise. They'd love to believe that the majority of Israelis would like to have an honorable peace with justice and so on. I'm afraid it's not true. Israelis have been voting in governments, more and more extreme right-wing governments, for the last 35 years. Thanks very much for the call.
Okay.
Ife, who do we have?
Coming up next is David. David from Astoria, Queens.
David in Astoria. Welcome, my friend.
Welcome. Good point. I just came back from Israel about a week ago. The arrogance of these people toward my country, the United States. But what can I do? I'd like to know, sir, if you might be able to do a program on Rachel Corrie. And also there was, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but there was a young Jewish American who was protesting on J Street several weeks ago, and he was brutally beaten by the Israeli police, left to rot inside of jail for 3 days before the American consulate had the courage or the spine or the moral right to visit him. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know about that story. Of course, I know Rachel Corrie story very well.
Yeah.
She's a great American.
Yes.
Great American hero.
Yes.
Put her body in front of a bulldozer.
Yes.
To try and save a Palestinian family's home from being smashed into smithereens.
Yes.
And I salute her, of course.
Yes. So do I. That's one of the reasons why I went there. I wasn't treated very well. I was mistreated. First of all, I'm coming from the perspective as an American citizen, protecting my American citizens, particularly her. Right or wrong, once you show that passport to them, they guarantee you police. They don't obey that.
No, they don't. They treat
right.
American passports with contempt, and British ones.
Well, thank you. And yet when I tell all my friends here, they think I'm full of cheeseburgers and French fries.
No, you're absolutely correct. And it is one of the great questions of our age. How come the greatest country in the world, the United States of America, is allowing its entire policy to be dictated by a tiny group of people who have absolute contempt for you?
Now, I'll tell you something. I'm half Jewish, and people there and here call me self-loathing. So I'm not self-loathing, self-hating. I have eyes. I see injustice being done to these Palestinians. And yes, you are right. Whatever Jews or Israelis that are pro-peace, they're minority. And I heard stories from people that are pro-peace that if they find out that you're pro-peace, they stand outside your house and they shout at you and they insult you, along with the Jewish Christians that are there.
Well, look, I don't get into religious matters. For me,
I
brother, let me reply that I never discuss who's Jewish, who's not Jewish. As I've often said, many Jews are not Zionists, and most Zionists are not Jews. So it's nothing to do with Jews, Christians, Muslims for me.
Yeah, I understand.
It's about people and land.
Yeah.
And the country that was wiped off the map was called Palestine. It no longer exists. Go to your map and see.
I understand. I understand. That's why.
Okay, brother. Thank you very much.
Okay,
I need to press on because lots of people are trying to get through to me. Ife, who do we have?
Well, on the line right now is the angry brother who's driving a truck in Manhattan.
Angry brother. I remember you. You were very angry last week. Are you less angry this week?
Well, I'm not going to talk about 9/11, but I'm going to talk about something more appalling. About the rights of homosexual marriage. This is the end of the republic if the society allows. Now, you had trillions upon trillions of human beings born on this planet. No human being ever came into existence from a homosexual marriage or relationship. They're all human beings, all come in through a man and woman. There's no equal. No relationship, whether it's man and woman or woman, should ever be given equal status with that of a man and woman, because that's the procreator of life. Without a man and woman, no human being will be in existence. So I think this is by the elite to distract us, to put another thing in our minds where it distracts us from them. Are you still there?
I'm still here, and I'm waiting for your punchline.
No, it's not. I'm not a comedian, so I don't give punchlines.
All right. Well, let me intrude. You may not be a comedian, but you're a bigot. And if a bigot was if a bigot was on the line talking about black people in the way you're talking about gay people, then I would have stopped their conversation in its tracks, which is something I wish I had done with you. Let me tell you, as a religious believer myself, that God made everyone as they are. If somebody's gay, then God made them that way. No one can explain it. It's a mystery
So let me make a statement.
It's a mystery as yet unrevealed.
No.
It's a mystery as yet unrevealed. But every person on this earth is as God made them. Nobody made a decision to be gay. Nobody was forced to be gay. If they're gay, they're gay, they're gay. And if they're gay, I hope they can find love and security and the kind of happiness that I myself have been able to find in my life as a person who definitely is not gay. I will not allow anybody to be discriminated against, whether because of their religion, their color, their sexual orientation, their level of ability, or any other thing that did not come of their choosing but is as God made them. So that's my last word.
Are you finished?
That's my last word to you. Ife, who else have we got?
Well, coming up next, you have...
Ife?
Yes, I'm right here. Tom from New Jersey.
Tone in New Jersey.
Tom.
Welcome to the show, my friend.
Yes. Hello, George. Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a concern about the Gaza flotilla, and I'm sure so many people do, and I'm apprehensive. You know, we all want to be sure that no one ends up getting hurt, right? And I don't know how the reaction to the IDF landing on the boats occurred, or why it did the way it did the last time. But especially after the remarks by an Israeli official that were reported on Democracy Now! This morning, where all this nonsense about hearing that people were planning to throw acid on IDF soldiers and all this stuff if they land on the boats, which is, of course, horrible garbage. But I'm wondering, do you know anything about how well are they prepared? Do they prepare the way they did in the civil rights movement with trainings for passive resistance and for nonviolence? And I'm concerned that even though people who are going on the flotilla, some of them got the message out in the press, and it might have been Democracy Now! Again, that they're following the tradition of Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. I would really love it if I could hear a really explicit message getting out as much as possible in the press, where they're saying that they're unified and that no one, it's going to be not civil disobedience, passive resistance, right, and nonviolence. And it would be great if they were trained amongst themselves so well that even if provocateurs were there, that no one would react, no one would follow them, even if 10 provocateurs. All right.
Well, look, thanks for that call. I'm not involved in this flotilla, but I was involved in the last one. The last one I can speak about definitively. 9 friends of mine were murdered in cold blood by so-called Israeli commandos who killed them. Unarmed, peaceful, civil rights workers, humanitarian workers who came on an aid ship, who were moreover in international waters where Israeli commandos had no legal right to be. It was an act of piracy on the high seas. It involved the murder of 9 Turkish citizens, one of them a Turkish-American citizen. It left one other Turkish citizen brain dead. He will never recover. He is living a permanent vegetative life. It wounded scores of other internationals, many of whom were friends of mine, and it kidnapped on the high seas hundreds of my friends and took them illegally into the desert in the Negev in handcuffs to be illegally incarcerated and robbed of all their possessions, even their clothes, their computers, their telephones, their money, lots of money stolen from them. And indeed, some of their computers turned up for sale in a marketplace in Jerusalem some weeks later. So I know about the Israeli attitude to other people's lives. I also know, of course, that if Iran had boarded an aid ship in international waters and murdered 9 international humanitarian aid workers, we'd already be at war with Iran. But Israel has one law and the rest of the world another. On this flotilla, Israel has tried everything up to and including, so far, sabotage. They have deliberately, using underwater divers, broken the propeller shaft of a ship that was docked in Piraeus harbor in Greece and making ready to sail. It has been the victim of a terroristic act of sabotage. Again, I ask you this. If Iran had done this in Greece, if an Iranian commando had swum under somebody's ship in Greece and destroyed the propeller shaft, what would the international reaction be? They have intimidated the people on the flotilla. Hillary Clinton has warned the American citizens on board that they face fines, even imprisonment, for the act of bearing witness to an illegal blockade which is causing widespread suffering and international insecurity. The government of Turkey was prevailed upon to withdraw from the flotilla and withdraw its port facilities. The government of Greece, with all its economic difficulties, is being prevailed upon not to permit the flotilla to sail from there. Other governments, like the German government, have, either of their own volition or under heavy manners, have been placing every obstacle possible in front of the people on the flotilla. I don't know if the flotilla will sail. If it sails, I hope the governments of those nationals on board will protect their citizens from international gangsterism and lawlessness. And if you don't mind my saying so, the people to whom we should be appealing to behave in a non-violent fashion are not the peace activists who haven't even sailed yet, but the Israeli rogue state, which is openly threatening to kill them if they do. Ife, do we have another call, my dear? Hello?
I'm sorry, I was on the phone with someone.
I beg your pardon. I stopped unexpectedly because my soliloquy had gone on so long.
Yes, but I have Henry from Brooklyn who's on the line.
Henry in Brooklyn, welcome to the show, my friend. What would you like to say?
Well, I wanted to respond to what that homophobic fellow said a little earlier. You know, I don't agree with either of you. I think there's an argument that hasn't been presented here with regard to that marriage thing. The way I see it, homosexuals are a thing that exists, homosexuality has always existed.
I missed that last bit, brother. Say that again.
I said homosexuality is apparently a thing that has always existed.
Yes.
All right. And in most societies, I think it was frowned upon. Nevertheless,
not really. Alexander the Great was the greatest emperor in the world, and he was gay.
Oh, I know about Alex. The thing is, it's a thing. I don't believe most people are born that way. I believe most people are become oriented somewhere along the line as youth, especially when they first come into puberty. I think their first exposures is what happens to a lot of people. And from a lot of people that I've talked to, it seems like they get turned out at a certain age. I do believe that there are
you a specialist in this? You know, because I'm not. And I don't want to become a sexual psychotherapist.
When I went to school, and it was a subject of human sexuality class, and I've been doing a lot of observation ever since then. It's one of my favorite subjects. It's kind of a hobby of mine to observe people, you know. And I do believe that part of its orientation and that there are some people born that way. However, you have to be compassionate on both sides. I don't think anyone should be beaten up or discriminated against because of what they choose to do. However,
that's really, I mean, I can settle for that. I don't agree with your analysis. I believe that we are all as God made us. We don't know why we were made this color or that, with this orientation or that, with this number of limbs or that. I don't know how that happened. That's a mystery. That's a mystery beyond me. But what I am certain of is that I will never remain silent when discrimination is practiced against anyone on the basis of what they are, how they are.
Discrimination is a wrong thing. I agree. However, when you tell my son and daughter who are 10 years old or 11 years old, and someone makes a homosexual approach to them, that this is normal and they should feel alarmed.
Brother, if anybody makes a sexual approach to them, not a homosexual approach, a sexual approach, whether it's straight or gay, somebody making a sexual approach to your 10 or 11-year-old child is committing a sin and a serious crime.
I'm not talking about an adult.
Why
I'm
are you
talking about other
a
children.
homosexual? Why are
I'm
you
talking
singling
about
out
the
a
way
homosexual
children
approach?
I'm talking about the way children interact with children sexually. And you know that happens.
Nobody should be interacting sexually with a 10 or an 11-year-old child.
Children play doctor, they play house because they're curious.
We should be supervising our children in such a way that there are no sexual approaches, either gay or straight, practiced on 10 and 11-year-old children. But this is a red herring.
It would be nice to be able to keep your eyes on your kids. Ideally, it would be nice to keep your eyes on your kids all the time.
The issue is whether consenting adults should be able to live their lives as they themselves want to live them. I say yes. You say maybe. The guy from the Bronx earlier said no. We'll just have to hear what the rest of the people think. 212-209-2900. That's the number to call. It's George Galloway. It's the mother of all talk shows.
My fellow Americans, I want to share with you an interesting program for two reasons. One, it's interesting, and two, it's interesting. George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows, big in Texas.
Yes, big in Texas. Not yet, but I will be. This is George Galloway. This is the mother of all talk shows. Aoife, do we have another caller on the line?
Yes, you have Sandy, who's actually a producer here with Radio Free Aaron on the line right now.
Excellent. Sandy, welcome to the show, brother.
And welcome to you, to the BAI. And it has been my pleasure
much
to interview you on Radio Free Aaron several times.
Yes, I remember it well.
I want to disagree with you over Puerto Rico. I believe that Puerto Rico is a U.S. colony, just as Northern Ireland is a British colony. I mean, I had my late friend George Harrison, who ran guns to the IRA for 20 years. You say U.S. has no more right in Puerto Rico than Britain does in Ireland. Look.
Yeah, but what about the fact that most Puerto Ricans want to be associated with the United States?
Some say that most people in Northern Ireland.
But Northern Ireland is an No, brother.
If it's a colony,
Northern Ireland is an artificially created, gerrymandered entity, so designed as to give that, they thought, answer in perpetuity. But Puerto Rico is not.
But Puerto Rico is a distinct language, it's a distinct culture. It was conquered by military force. If it's a colony, George, it
has a right to self-determination. You're right. It has a right to independence.
Right.
But you can't force people to be independent if they don't want to be.
No, but if it's a colony, then the U.S. has a responsibility for decolonization, as the UN Decolonization Commission has found, though I wouldn't care what a UN commission found.
Well, everything in that sense is a colony, and Texas is a colony. It was obtained by force from somebody else. California was obtained by force from somebody else. Indeed, from sea to shining sea, your whole state is based on the disinheritance of other people's land.
But they don't have...
The modern reality is this, surely, that there are political parties who run on the basis of complete independence for Puerto Rico from the United States, and they gain, I think, 2 or 2.5% of the vote. So you can't bring about a political end result that 97.5% of the people oppose and reject.
Well, I mean, I think the U.S., if it is a colony, the U.S. has a responsibility for decolonization. To get out.
We'll just have to agree.
At that point, look, if at that point the Puerto Rican people, free of any domination, want to make an arrangement, fine. They
do. But they do. The people elect politicians who want to make that arrangement. There are 3 different strands, one for independence, one for a renegotiated relationship, and one for full statehood. All I'm saying to you is this. If I lived in Puerto Rico, I'd want to be a state of the United States.
Why?
Well, because I'd be better off.
Why would you?
I'd be better off if I was an independent, tiny country in the Caribbean. I'd end up like the other independent, tiny countries in the Caribbean, with the exception of Cuba, living in really pretty desperate economic straits.
Well, why would you be worse off in Cuba?
I wouldn't be. In Cuba, I'd be part of a socialist country. That's another argument.
Well, I mean, if you would have the same potential with an independent Puerto Rico, wouldn't you? Without U.S. preventing that?
How would an independent Puerto Rico be able to be socialist? What material wealth does Puerto Rico have that would allow it to become a socialist country? Cuba had many advantages, but the greatest of them was that it was part of a socialist camp across the world,
but it's no longer part.
And was able to build its socialist society on very favorable relations with the socialist camp in the world that no longer exists.
It no longer exists. So by your logic, Cuba would no longer be socialist.
Well, it's on its way to being a different kind of country, isn't it?
But surely, if Puerto Rico was free of U.S. domination, they would have that option.
They wouldn't have that option because they wouldn't have any allies in the world.
Well, Cuba has no allies in the world either.
Well, as a matter of fact, it does, but that's really another discussion.
Well, but all I'm saying
I'm for self-determination for Puerto Rico. What I'm not going to do is, as some white guy living in London, prescribe to the Puerto Ricans what they should do with their right of self-determination. And I think you're making that mistake as a white guy living in New York. Anyway, I've got to chase you off, brother, because I've got other calls on the line. Thanks very much indeed for your wisdom. This is George Galloway. It's the mother of all talk shows. 212-209-2900. Ife, who do we have?
You have Elliot from Staten Island.
Elliot in Staten Island. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, George. I wish you have a great day. There are these people who are against this gay marriage. There are two questions, 2 points I have for them. Who are they to tell us what God has in his mind, what God means? To take that audacity to say that they are God and this is what God wants, it really disturbs me. Secondly, if this world was the gay world, and we who are bisexual, we were in a minority, and said that we have to be gay. Can we who are straight, can we change our straightness to gay? Can we? What
a very good point. What a very, very good point. Let me tell you that nothing in the world could persuade me to be gay. Nothing could orientate me to be gay. I'm as straight as it is possible to be. But I will not arrogate to myself the right to dictate how other people live. If somebody says to me that they didn't choose this, nobody forced them into it, nobody tricked them or hoodwinked them into it, they just have feelings of that kind for members of the same sex, who am I to tell them that they're lying? Who am I to tell them they must be second-class citizens? Don't you think?
In addition to that, who in his right mind, seeing the way the gay people are treated, will say, well, I choose to be gay. Oh, in their right mind.
Yeah, very good point. So I couldn't put it better than you. So I'm not going to try. Thanks for your call. I appreciate it very much. Welcome. It's George Galloway. It's the mother of all talk shows.
Hello?
Yes, Ife.
Yes, catching me taking listener calls.
I took your breath away. Ife. And I have that effect sometimes. Who's next on the line?
You have some women coming up. You have Laurel from Seacliff, New York.
Laurel in Seacliff, New York. That sounds like a most exotic locale. But then I am in Jakarta. Tell me, what would you like to say?
Well, and speaking of gay marriage, I myself have been married, and I'm a heterosexual. What I don't understand is those who are against gay marriage say marriage is between a man and a woman, and no one was born from a man and
I've lost you. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I am.
I missed that last part. Would you say it again, kindly?
Sure. People who are opposed to the idea of gay marriage imply that it's about procreation.
Yeah.
Is there a fertility test when one gets married?
Very good point.
I mean, if a woman were unable to bear children or a man were unable to bear children and they were in a heterosexual marriage, is that an aberration?
Does that invalidate their relationship? What a very good point.
Yes, exactly. Or someone who's 90 years old who wants to get married. Yeah. So I feel that
I wish I'd thought of that, but now I'll add it to my
your arsenal
of arguments. I'm glad you called in because I was a little worried at some of the earlier reactions. How has this decision gone down in New York?
Very well.
I thought that.
Very well. I think about 70% of the population believes that why not? Of course.
Exactly. Why not? I mean, why are we even preoccupying ourselves with this? Are there not bigger and more important issues in the world?
If it's about love and trust and confidence and intimacy, I'm all for that.
Me too.
I'm all for that.
I wish everyone in the world could find love.
Yes, exactly.
That's what I wish.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much
You're
indeed.
Quite welcome.
For a beautiful call. Ife, who else do we have on the line?
You have Linda from Princeton, New Jersey.
Never stop looking for Linda in Princeton, New Jersey. Linda, welcome to the show. What would you like to say?
Good morning, George.
Hi.
I have an idea to sort of gum up the works regarding homosexual marriage, of which I certainly approve. Although I don't like the idea of marriage. I think it's an insane institution most of the time.
Well, I've been trying it all my life, you know. I've been trying it over and over again.
Yeah. Listen, my idea is the following. Maybe there are some matrimonial lawyers listening who could work this idea up. My idea is to have two couples form a cooperative, two gay couples, one male, one female. From couple A of the two males, one of them would marry one of the female couples from couple B. In other words, a homosexual male would marry a homosexual female. They would have to form a legal cooperative so that all four members could derive the financial benefits of the institution of marriage from one another through an interchange between those two couples. The men would still live together, and the women would live together, but they would be married to a member of the opposite sex amongst the four people. I don't know whether you see what I'm saying.
I do, but I think it
it
sounds like a recipe for a big matrimonial lawyer bean fest, if you ask me. There would be legal actions without number. Life is complicated enough.
I know,
and definitely marriage can be complicated.
It would have to be done among four people.
Two people in love with each other is the best form of human cohabitation.
Take care.
Whoever they are and whatever they are, I hope everyone finds it. Linda, thanks very much indeed for the call. Ife, any more?
Yes, you have KJ from Queens.
Yeah, hi,
KJ
George.
in Queens. Welcome to the show.
Okay, thank you. Good day. I thought I'd sit out this session, this week.
We enticed you in.
Yeah, you could by your remarks, George. I'll say that.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to mention I'm not a white male. I'm an African American male, but I do want to take up the issue of Puerto Rico's independence as a matter of question. You probably are right statistically in terms of the vote of 97% of the people voting in favor of statehood or some form of relationship with America or United States. However, I think most nations in the Caribbean and elsewhere would, because of the dependency that they've gotten historically in the sort of relationships that they've shared with, or not even shared, but actually have been subject to by the imperial nations, particularly in this case America, would be adverse to going independent or seeking their independence because of that. And you can't just say, well, not you can, but you can't just break off that relationship, say, oh, you're independent today. Because I think that the things like CAFTA and other policies that prohibit or in many ways restrict nations' and I'll speak specifically of the Caribbean, from the joining in joint associations for trade and so forth, have been blocked and hindered by America's policy. For example, if we take one example, Haiti, okay, or we take Jamaica and the bauxite issues, or so forth. I think that Puerto Rico, while may not have as much resources, I think if given the time to wean itself off, would fare better to make its own policy, determine its own destiny, and negotiate its relationships with other nations in the Caribbean. It'll be on a small economic scale, possibly, but you never know. But until the fear factor is removed and a sense of that they do take that step, I think it's about educating and deciding this is what we need to do. And I think that's their right to self-determination.
Okay, that's a very well put argument. And if we had the kind of world that I have struggled for all my life, that would no doubt be a most amicable set of relations. But we're a long way short of that kind of world. We live in a brute, globalized capitalist world where the peoples of the Caribbean countries have been beggared. Most of them had colonial relationships with Europe and trade preferences and so on with their former colonial powers, most of which have been abandoned. And there are many, many Caribbean countries and most people in those Caribbean countries who face a very, very precarious future. And Puerto Rico, for a variety of historical reasons, finds itself in this, let's call it, special relationship with the United States, and most Puerto Ricans want to keep it. To me, it's a simple matter of self-determination. You can't expel Puerto Rico against the wishes of its citizens from this relationship with the United States. That would be just as imperialistic a decision as to conquer and occupy
yes, indeed.
a Caribbean country.
I concur with you, George. I'm not. One wouldn't want them to be expelled by own wish, but by merits of just look at D.C., Washington, D.C., the lack of ability to vote for things that they want as a local populace, yet you're told you're part of the nation, yet you're treated like a stepchild. That's unfair. And so that is the issue of self-determination. And they probably...
No, it's a great point. It's a great point, brother, and very well made. I want to try and get one more call in, Ife, if I may.
Yes, it's Paul from Brooklyn.
Paul in Brooklyn, welcome to the show, my friend.
Yes, hi. How are you, Mr. Galloway?
I'm very well, thanks.
I listen to your program all the time. I think it's very educational.
Thank you.
However, I beg to differ with you on a point that you made earlier concerning Puerto Rico being a colony of the United States. You said that it would be better off for it to remain a colony of the United States, and you make comparison with the other Caribbean islands.
Yeah.
I'm from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, actually. We had got independence from Britain in the 70s.
Yep.
And I can attest to the fact that we are much better off today.
Well, I'm glad about that. I don't know enough about St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but I do know that there are many, many Caribbean islands that are facing a very difficult economic future. In the 21st century, their original economic purpose having altered and changed and become otiose in some respects. Their former relationship with their European colonial countries at an end, and in difficulty as to see a way forward. And poverty, underdevelopment in Caribbean countries is very, very real. Anyway, I think it's been a terrific show today, considering the technical difficulties of having a radio show in New York and the tri-state area from Jakarta, Indonesia, in a hotel room on a telephone, which I stress would just not have been possible without the wonderful Ife, and I hope I didn't, by taking her breath away, cause her any embarrassment earlier. I've had a text scolding me for doing so, and I hope Ife takes it in the spirit in which I offer it. This has been George Galloway. This has been the mother of all talk shows. God willing, I'll talk to you again next week at the same time in the same place from not quite so far away, from London town. Until then, enjoy this show, enjoy this song, but remember who it refers to. Poor Hattie Carroll, who never sat once at the head of the table. a bit like that Indonesian domestic servant who had her head chopped off yesterday by our great friends, the Saudi Arabian dictatorship.
She was 51 years old and gave birth to 10 children who carried the dishes and took out the garbage and never sat once at the head of the table and did